Most of us have goals, whether it's staying healthy, cutting weight, learning a new language, or even starting a YouTube channel as I do. They all have one thing in common. It's kind of easy to start, but super difficult to stick with it. Before you can successfully build a set of habits for your goal, motivation usually fades away way faster than you expected because the reward never comes on time. So you can't help but give up your goal, revert to your old self, and then set another new goal. And then the same thing happened again and again. Change is really hard, as you might have noticed. But what if I tell you there is a technique that will help you stick to your goals for way longer, so you don't give up after the first few weeks? And then with this mindset, you can finally achieve your goal and transform yourself completely this year. So, what are we usually missing if we fail to stick with our goals? The quick answer is that we usually try to accomplish a goal without building the right type of identity. Let's take a look at a common example of a smoker trying to quit smoking. Jimmy wanted to quit smoking, but when his colleague gave him a cigarette, Jimmy said, "Sorry, I'm trying to quit smoking." It seems a reasonable response, but it reveals that something is still missing with Jimmy if he is trying to quit smoking. Can you spot the missing thing of Jimmy? The mistake is simple. Even though Jimmy told his colleague that he's trying to quit smoking, he still identifies himself as a smoker. If he doesn't identify himself as a smoker anymore, he should be responding something like, "I don't smoke anymore," instead of saying, "I'm trying to quit smoking." He failed to quit smoking because he hadn't built the new identity of a person who doesn't smoke. There's a huge difference between telling people, "I'm trying to quit smoking," and "I don't smoke anymore." The second response is clearly the winner, because he's telling himself he is not a smoker anymore. That's why he wouldn't take the cigarette. Everybody can persuade itself to not smoke a day or two, but when it's a stressful day, it's way harder to resist a cigarette if you still identify yourself as a smoker. So, identity change is the key to sticking to a goal. If you want to stick to your goal, apart from telling yourself what to do, you must also decide what type of person you need to become. Any action that is incongruent or inconsistent with the person's identity can never be sustained. A smoker will always relieve their stress with cigarettes, and it's really hard to resist. Without identity change, actions are taken by consuming your very limited motivation, which would not last for long. And now, you might have two questions coming up in your mind. The first one is, how do we know what type of person we need to become, which is the identity? And the second question is, how do we actually change our identity and become the person who we want to be? I'll address these two questions one by one. When we're thinking about what type of person we need to become so that we can achieve our goal, it's actually pretty straightforward. You just need to think about who is the type of person who would never struggle with those actions that align with your goal. If your goal is to exercise regularly, then who is the type of person who never struggles with it? Right, it's definitely an athlete or an athletic person. So your new identity should be an athletic person. Or if your goal is to write 500 words every day because you want to publish a book in the future, then your new identity should be a writer. Similarly, people who want to have reading 10 pages of a book every day as a goal should identify themselves as a reader or a learner. Giving yourself a new identity is super powerful because by having a strong image of who you are, it's easier to produce certain actions daily. If you have a solid identity, it's usually feel impossible not do certain actions. You can't find a painter who doesn't draw at least once a week. You also can't find a chef who doesn't cook once a week. Once you form the right type of identity for your goal, you don't feel like you're disciplined when performing certain tasks. Because instead of feeling disciplined, it should feel more like natural or normal to perform certain tasks, because you're just doing what you're supposed to do. So even if you know what type of identity you need to build, it still doesn't do much for you if you don't know how to form the identity for yourself. The procedure of forming your new identity is nothing close to the law of attraction, where you might need to broadcast your energy to the universe and brainwash yourself every day in front of your toilet mirror, yelling at yourself, "I'm a healthy person," or "I don't smoke anymore." The real identity changing acts more like a voting system. Every time you take action for your new identity, you're giving your new identity a yes vote. And every time you skip the action, or you do the opposite, you're giving your new identity a no vote. And after you understand the voting system, your job is to vote a lot more yes than no. Every time you eat a healthy meal, you're voting a yes to your healthy person identity. And every time you eat a frozen pizza for dinner, you're voting a no to it. Every time you go to the gym, you're voting a yes to "I'm a fitness person." And every time you skip the gym, you're voting a no. Similarly, every time you call your spouse when you're free, you're voting a yes to "I'm a good husband" or a good wife who takes care of your relationship. Some people might think that we need to take big action to make the vote valid. But in fact, tiny action like walking for 20 extra minutes if you want to become a fit person is already a valid vote because you're already burning a bit of calories and creating a healthy routine. The quality or the size of the action for a vote is not as important as the quantity, which is the number of the vote. You can go to the gym 3 hours once a month and exhaust yourself, or you can go once a week for 45 minutes to get the same workout time without burning yourself out. There are two benefits of taking smaller actions instead of big actions for your goals. First, it's easier to start, so it's easier to do the task every day or every week, and the momentum can be preserved. Second, it can create way more evidence for yourself in different situations, so you can believe yourself that you can do the same thing the next time. So, the procedure of identity change is simple. First, pick who you want to become according to your goal. And second, accumulate way more yes votes than the no votes by repeating small actions that prove your identity. Notice that your identity is not a 0 or 1 value. It's like a spectrum where it can go anything between maybe -100 to +100. And it can also fluctuate over time. So it takes mental energy to maintain your vote on a daily basis, because skipping action also means voting a no. And the good news is that if you have more and more votes on the yes side, it should feel more effortless to perform the actions next time, which is the whole point of forming an identity. So, in this video, we've covered why changing identity is super powerful and how you actually shape your new identity when it comes to achieving a goal. But changing identity itself is more like a mindset thing. So, if you want more practical advice on how to build habits and achieve your goal more easily, please check this video where I'll walk you through more practical steps so that you can conquer your goals easily.